it's not really going that I don't think that'll affect the gold price that much because because the market assumes that the gold is there. It's there or not doesn't matter because the the exchange rate the because the natural exchange rate for gold versus dollars in a world where the dollar no longer is trusted is something like 40, 50,000 per ounce. It's not anywhere near where it is now.
Right.
And we're headed in that direction, whether there is gold in Fort Knox or not. If there isn't, then we'll get there faster. If there is, we'll get there anyway. So like it's not worth placing bets that it won't have an effect on gold. It definitely will. And if we get the news that everything's there and it's not double, triple, quadruple owned and everything's kosher and we can all party now, it's not really going that I don't think that'll affect the gold price that much because because the market assumes that the gold is there. But the whether it's there or not doesn't matter because the the exchange rate the because the natural exchange rate for gold versus dollars in a world where the dollar no longer is trusted is something like 40, 50,000 per ounce. It's not anywhere near where it is now.
Right.
And we're headed in that direction, whether there is gold in Fort Knox or not. If there isn't, then we'll get there faster. If there is, we'll get there anyway. So like it's not worth placing bets, unless you have extra change and or you're a billionaire and you want to put a few million on it. It's not worth. I've placed options bets on gold before and I've lost them all.
Oh, geez.
I place no, it's okay. Like I do it every 2 years. Every 2 years I reload long-term options on one of these gold or silver ETFs just to, if the end game happens within 2 years of my bet, I'll get a lot of dollars. I don't even know if that's going to help me at all. But no, anyway, I reloaded this year on call options on one of the big gold ETFs, and I'm in the money now. So great, maybe I'll make back the 3, 4 thousand I lost over the last 10 years. Buying a few $100, every 2 years or so. Maybe not, but it's the same thing. If you want to play the Fort Knox game and you want to buy a few call options on gold, hoping that there's no gold there, and then it jumps up, you might make money. But either way. Either way, the faith in the dollar as a gold derivative is going to be lost, and we got to prepare for that, not whether or not there's gold in Fort Knox. I looked at the LBMA statistics. I think it was last week. I had neglected to look at them, and all of a sudden I see all this talk about gold being shuttled out of London into New York, and then you look at the gold supplies there. Not really. It could be that the LBMA. It probably is that the LBMA is being used as an exchange, as an exchange system to bring gold from Switzerland to the United States, which is apparently what's happening, which is what
Yeah.
happened in 2020. It's the LBMA. It's an exchange house, an exchange network for the transfer of gold titles, and then they're physically fulfilled in Switzerland and then shipped to New York, with London not really being part of the physical equation. But if you look at the silver float, we're at new record lows. I think it's 722 million ounces. And there was a guy, I think Mario Ineka sent me an article, and I'm going to be talking with him later tonight on his live stream. I think David Jensen wrote that the total number of silver ounces owned by silver ETFs is 522 million, and they store all that stuff in London. So
Wow.
if you take 720 through four, or something, but the difference between the total amount of silver at the LBMA that they admit to having minus the silver that's owned by ETFs is about 198 million ounces.
Wow.
That's it. That's it. And now if you look back at Silver Squeeze and you look at the amount of silver that was in SLV at the peak of Silver Squeeze in I think it was February 2021, right?
Right.
That's how you got your start.
Yeah.
Or yeah, that's how
Yeah, because I
you
started it
yeah.
January 31st, and then the next month, the Silver Squeeze really took off.
Yeah. So if SLV had all of the silver it had at the peak of Silver Squeeze, the LBMA would be completely drained. There would be zero there.
Wow. That's crazy. That's
Yeah.
absolutely crazy.
So I mean, if we do it again, we could do it. But it's trying to get everyone on the same page at the same time is very difficult. But that the numbers are there. We can do it.
Recent discussions surrounding the state of the global financial system are sparking renewed interest in the gold to silver ratio, especially as financial instability continues to rise. Historically, the gold to silver ratio has stood at 15 to 1, a balance reflecting these precious metals' true value. However, with the introduction of gold and silver derivatives, financial instruments that have distorted the actual value of these metals, Rafi Farber argues that this ratio will return to its historical balance during a peak financial crisis as the monetary system faces significant disruption. This shift is expected to occur when the illusion of gold and silver ownership through derivatives collapses, allowing the true value of these metals to emerge. As silver becomes increasingly scarce and demand for it continues to grow, Farber highlights that the price is poised to rise sharply. The collapse of gold derivatives and their influence on market values will push silver into a more prominent role as a store of value. The silver squeeze of 2020 was a small preview of what could happen when market forces push the price of silver upward, potentially correcting the gold to silver ratio. Farber explains that investors will likely turn to silver as a key asset in this environment, driving prices higher and restoring the historic 15 to 1 ratio between gold and silver.
That is, if there is any one single bell that rings and says this is the end game, it's the gold to silver ratio.
Right.
I keep saying that the gold to silver ratio at the peak of panic, it won't stay there for a very long time, but at the peak of panic, we know the end game is hit and this is the end of the monetary system. That's when we have this gold to silver ratio of 15 to 1, because that's the historic monetary ratio for hundreds, even thousands of years. That's what it was. And why was it that way? Because nobody had any gold derivatives back in the 1700s.
Right.
I mean, I'm not saying there weren't any gold derivatives. There were, but they were very temporary and private and over the counter between parties. If you wanted to travel to, let's say, I don't know, Glasgow to London, and you didn't want to be carrying a whole bunch of gold because you could get robbed on the way. So then in Glasgow, you could get like a note for that amount of gold to be delivered to London that you could ride on horseback to, deliver it to the Bank of England so you can get your gold. That was the extent of gold derivatives, right?
Right.
So if you lost the note, nothing happens because nobody else can use it. That's the point, right? And now we have all this crap like flowing through the system that it pretends to represent the gold and the silver that it doesn't. So I'm saying back then there was no market for gold derivatives. Gold derivatives were a convenience that people used when they needed to.
Right.
There was no market for them. It's not like they were sold. So in a world where there's no functioning gold derivatives, no market for them, then silver has to be used on a retail level because you can't use gold derivatives because they don't exist.